Would you rather work 4 10s or 5 8 days, and why? Story 1. 4 10s are great, but it doesn't work for people that have kids in daycare, since legally, at least in some states, a child can only be there for so long. In this case, 5 8 works better. However, companies should change to 4 8 with no decrease in pay because it's proven that you get the same or more productivity from the employee. It's a win-win. Story 2. I definitely prefer to work 4 10-hour days because having a 3-day weekend offers a much better work-life balance for personal errands, travel, or simply resting. While the days are longer, knowing I get an extra day off every week makes the extended hours feel much more worthwhile. That extra day is a huge boost to recharging. Story 3. I think we should have a 4-day work week and that people work 5 half-days. Sitting around at your desk scrolling your phone is not working. It's just putting time on the books. Really work hard for 4 hours a day. Have a 3-day weekend. Americans grind too much. Story 4. I work 4s with every other Friday off and the other from home. Best schedule I've ever had in my life. It's actually 9 hours a day though. The work from home day is basically dead too, so it's almost never a big thing. I used to work 21 and 2 in the past though, so I'm easily impressed. Story 5. 4 10s. Even better, IMO, 3 13s. Best yet, my current 4 9s arrangement. Every Friday off, 4 weeks vacation, and 3 weeks sick leave annually. My family don't like the concept because America is losing its drive, and winners don't quit. But honestly, after having some quite abusive employers in the past, I'm happy with what I have now. Yeah, I feel like I've won. Story 6. Everyone says 4 10s, but I disagree after actually doing it. When I worked 5 8s, I had 5 weeknights free and 2 weekend days. But when I worked 4 10s, I lost those weeknights. Because at 7 p.m. you don't have time to do anything but eat and go to bed for the next day. So you do gain an extra weekday to act as a weekend bit. You block off 4 weeknights that were previously free for casual dinners, movies, or relaxing. Story 7. I'm working 4 9s right now, and luckily making enough to support myself. It feels like 4 days working is a really good sweet spot to maintain one's mental health. I feel like I have ample time to pursue my hobbies and spend quality time with my partner, while also having a day to clean and catch up on life duties. I take 4 10s over 5 8s any day. Story 8. For me, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. 4 days in a row sounds unhinged and akin to binging. It's cool if you love it, but I would dislike it. LOL. I enjoy my evening wind-down schedule starting at 5. I walk my dog, eat dinner at a reasonable time, and hang out with my husband friends, and get alone time in the late hours of the night. If I worked till 7 every day, I'd be starving and anxious by 5:30, not to mention completely checked out. What do people do? Pack lunch and dinner? Ugh. I'm not packing eating 2 meals for work, sorry. And during the winter with shorter daylight hours, I'd never see the sun. That sounds depressing. Plus, my ADHD meds only last 8 hours. I already feel like 40 hours a week is arbitrary and too long to be the standard anyway. Other countries get much better PTO too. I'm American. Work takes up so much of people's lives, especially if they have a commute. No way would I overwork myself 4 days for 1 day, where I'd probably be too exhausted to do anything anyway. Story 9. When there's a long weekend, I always feel like the week has been cut in half. That extra day really makes a huge difference. Day for errands, day for fun, day for relaxing. Whereas I've never felt meaningfully different after a slightly shorter versus longer day at work. So definitely 4 10s. Story 10. How about 4 8s and you pay me my normal salary? Then I get a slight chance at living a minimally fulfilling lifestyle that doesn't always involve make other people money. I spent a large part of my career working 50, a decent portion of which was spent working 60 hours a week. I paid my dues. Story 11. I'd rather 4 12s and an 8 on Friday, because I'm working 5 10s right now, with at least 2 or 3 8-hour days on Saturday out of the month. With 4 12s, I could basically get the equivalent of that my full Saturday. Now, if I hypothetically would be okay living on what I can make on a 40-hour week, then I'd absolutely take 4 10s, as that's honestly the most logical shift to exist, especially if you can maybe get an 8-hour shift every other week or so for the extra. Story 12. 4 10s easy. I've worked 6 12s for the entire summer before, and TBH, it's crazy how even then it feels like you are only making enough money to live decent during the summer. but it's hard to adjust your spending because you spend more to justify the extra working if you are at all like I was. I wish I could go back and save or have that type of pay year-round Z's. Story 13. The best hours I had was 8 hours on Monday and Friday and 12 hours on Saturday and Sunday. I put my 40 hours in and had 3 days off in the middle of the week while everyone else was working. I had all the shops, stores, and restaurants all to myself. Generally, since nobody was busy, I had great customer service wherever I went. Story 14. Neither. I need more than 2 days off, but I can barely make it through an 8-hour day because I get so overstimulated. And the longer I work, the more downtime I need. And every time I have tried working longer shifts, I get so burnt out. And then it doesn't really matter having an extra day off when I'm just laying in bed recovering. Story 15. I work 12s, and out of 2-week rotation, it's 7 on and off, no more than 3 on in a row. Built in 4 hours OT every 2 weeks. I like the 7 days off in every 2 weeks rotation. Of course, now I stay 4 hours late on almost all of my 12s, making them 16s, and I come in on almost every day off for 4 hours. So yeah, putting in around 24 hours OT every week. Story 16. 4 10s. I don't mind slightly longer workdays. It would give me more of a chance to get deep into projects, big tasks anyway. I could treat the free day like I'm working a shift for myself, then have 2 days to actually relax and spend time with family and friends. Story 17. I used to work 4 10s and spent my day off volunteering at my local animal shelter. Then I was ordered to return to the office full-time. I was reporting in twice per week, and with my 2-hour commute, had to switch to 5 8-hour days. Had to give up the animal shelter. Miss it dearly. Story 18. Given those two choices, I'd go with 4 10s. Any day you work is already ruined, and so much time is put in you can't really do anything else. So having 3 uninterrupted days will let you rest more and get more personal stuff done. Not to mention you save money on commuting. Story 19. 4x10H or 3x12.5H. I work 12H in a 3-2-2-3. 1 week I work 2 shifts, so 5 days off. Other week I work 5 shifts, so 2 days off. Pattern, and it's perfect. I also did 11H shift on a 4-3-3-4 pattern, which was nice as well. I don't even want to hear about a 955 days a week anymore. Story 20. 4 10s if it wouldn't be standardized. An extra couple hours aren't that hard to do, and the whole extra free day definitely offsets the extra work. That's 1 more day you can sleep in, and also a weekday you can actually use to run errands you can't otherwise. And as I said, if it wasn't standard, i.e. applied to everyone, getting off at 7 would mean a lot less traffic on the commute back home. But if everyone had the same schedule, while the extra free day would be nice, you'd still get a horrible commute back, and everyone and their mother would be out on Friday trying to get stuff done. Story 21. I do work 4 10s and it's terrific. 3-day weekends are so much better. I get to spend a day relaxing and decompressing, a day for getting chores done, and then I've got a whole other day for goofing off however I want. Weekends never feel cramped, and I never go back to work tired. Story 22. I was supposed to work 4 8s, but till I came in early, left late, and sat through meetings, I always had 37, 38 hours in for the week. If I had worked 5 shifts, they'd have wanted 6 and so on. Short of move in and live there, I just tried to manage my work schedule and get enough rest. Nursing homes always want more hours. Story 23. 4 10s. I used to get this options in the summer at a job. They would let us have off Fridays, but working longer the other days. You'll be surprised how much time you save not going to and from work and getting ready. Plus, you're not dead from a fool's day work like the others. With this said, I don't have kids. I think I may answer this differently. If I had young children, I would want to be around either at dinner or breakfast, because going 10 hours probably means you're seeing those youngs much less. Story 24. As somebody who's worked 4 10s for 20 years, but has 0 kids and my wife died in May, that may not be affecting anything. I'm saying next, but 4 10s is awesome. But if I had kids, I think 5 8s would be better. Especially since I drive a long ways to work, so I don't get home until 7. Story 25. Truthfully, most people's jobs only require 25 hours of work per week. What with automation, computer programs, communication services only requiring seconds instead of days or weeks, and all the rest. The 40-hour work week was devised to work people had enough to get the most of them without them dying or revolting. It was designed by rich business owners to fudge over the workers just enough to not get the owners eliminate. We still have it, and it's most assuredly not necessary anymore. Story 26. 410s 100. I was a plant manager that tried to get the union to switch to 410s. The steward basically refused to do it because he worked 2 jobs and could not do that with 410s. So he screwed over everyone else. He refused to even let the union vote on it. They all dislike him for it. Story 27. 410s for sure. Why? Because a day is mostly shot anyway after 8 hours. The few hours you get after work at home aren't long enough to really do any serious activities. So if I feel my free time is just as quote-unquote ruined after an 8-hour day as it is after a 10-hour day, then I may as well do the 10-hour day and therefore buy an extra weekend day where I have big enough blocks of time to actually get some recreation in. Story 28. I've worked a couple jobs that actually had this exact option for the employees. I took 410s all day, every day. To me, the hard part is getting to work. Once there, 10 hours is no big deal. You either get 3 off every week, or you can work an extra shift and still have a 2-day weekend. Story 29. I've done 8s, 10s, and 12s, more like 13-hour shifts. I'll never do 12s again. Too grueling for me. With 8s, I don't like that I only have 2 days off. That feels criminal to me. 10s are the perfect sweet spot so that I can still have 3-day weekends, but it's not as horrible as having to stay for 12, 13 hours at a time. I don't think I'll ever want to go back to any other shifts again if I can help it. On top of all of that, I work from home. It's honestly perfect. Story 30. 410s for sure. I usually end up working 10s anyways. There's always something towards the end of the day that comes up that I can't leave right at 8 hours. Also, having 3-day weekends allows you to do your errands on Friday and leaves you 2 days to be able to kick back and relax. Story 31. 5 8-hour days, because I don't want to stand up for 10 hours. My job is all standing. I get 2 15-minute breaks that I typically take back-to-back so I can just sit, chill, eat my lunch for 30 minutes. So I'm on my feet for 7.5 hours. That's enough for me. Could I do 10 hours? Probably, but I'd rather not find out. I'm in my 60s and I just don't wanna. Story 32. 410s would only be tolerable for me if I could do 5 hours in the office and 5 hours at home on my in-the-office days. Like, it would just be a moderate drag to do 10 hours at home. But I would be unhappy spending that much time in the office each day. Story 33. To have predictability. It's been a while since I could say I had a specific start and end time. Most days I start at 7:30. I can be done anytime between 2 and 8 MF. And then I usually have some paperwork or other work-related tasks to do at home. At least I can say I have my weekends now. Story 34. I work 410s and love it. I wouldn't want to go back to 58 or even 980. It did take some getting used to, and some folks with small kids may find it difficult. But our management is flexible, and the workforce overwhelmingly prefers it. Having 3-day weekends every week is wonderful. Story 35. I've done both. I had Wednesdays off. It was nice to break up the week. Had band practice and got my chores done that day. However, those 10 days were long. I prefer 5 8-hour shifts over those long days. The real answer is 4 6-hour shifts. Let's go Finland. Story 36. I used to be willing to work 10, 12-hour days, 5, 6 days a week, but that was exhausting. I've gotten a little comfortable in a WFH job that pays really well and doesn't require too much from me. I'm supposed to work 5, 8-hour days, but I managed to get all my work done in 6 hours. So we'll take my 5 to 6-hour days. Story 37. Depends. If the work is somewhat chill and it is 8 to 4 p.m., then I'd probs do that. Also, how far is my commute? 5 minutes from work is a sweet gig. Up at 0600, maybe use the home gym. Home by 1605, plenty time to chill with the kiddos and make dinner. Then the evening is yours. Story 38. I have done 410s, 980, and regular 8-hour days. By far and away, 980 is the best schedule. An extra hour a day, Monday through Thursday, for every other Friday off is amazing. I can plan my appointments and chores for the off Friday and still have a weekend. And the extra hour isn't nearly as bad as an extra 2 hours. As an introvert, the 980 makes me feel like I can eat my cake, 3-day weekends only alternating, and have it too. Not too bad having to be social-ish during work. Story 39. I've done both, and 3 times 12, 4, And 5 by 8 has been my favorite, at least for office work. 4 by 9/4 is also nice because on Fridays I just go home for lunch and that would be that. When I did 4 by 10, it left me super drained in a way that not even the Friday off could make up for. When I get better into the swing of things and work becomes more routine, it'll definitely become preferable. Right now, though, I want to appreciate my evenings with my family and getting some time in the office with less people there distracting me. LOL. Story 40. 4 6s would be ideal. If your job produces something, you are going to produce just as much as 4 10s on any given day. Being allowed to rest means you'd actually produce more throughout the year. 4 8s is decent middle ground, but I'd take 4 12s over 5 8s anytime. Story 41. In 2020, my job allowed people to voluntarily choose to work 4 to 10-hour days instead of 5 to 8-hour days. All but 3 of about 30 people choose to do 10-hour days. Those who didn't had valid reasons like getting a child back and forth to school. The one person who never switched to 10-hour days had a breast cancer issue and didn't feel she was capable of working 10 hours consistently. She is retiring at the end of this month. Story 42. I would rather 4 10s. I've been doing 10s lately, and as long as your job gives you the option for a full hour break, either split it up as 2 30s or a full hour break at once. It's worth the 3 days off for sure, and definitely feels more manageable as far as work-life balance goes. Story 43. I know this isn't the answer you're looking for, but it really should be 4 8s for a 32-hour work week, with no reduction in pay or benefits. That's the real progress. Any of those other 2 options is just, at best, sideways change. That being said, 4 10s. Having an extended weekend every week is a better than nothing, even if it involves 4 harder workdays. Story 44. I did 4 10s for 6 years. I had weekends and Wednesdays off. Wednesday, I was able to get all my house chores done, as well as any running around I had to do. And my weekends were gloriously free to do whatever the F I wanted to. I miss that schedule desperately. Story 45. I had a wonderful split 4-10, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. New manager eliminated it and said, "You are not getting more than 40 hours a week done." Told him it was an employee perk and not the business's. Some say that is a weird shift, but I got all of my logistical shoot done on Wednesday and still had the full normal weekend. Story 46. I used to think 4 10s because who wouldn't want a 3-day weekend every week? Then I worked somewhere that did it. It works okay if it's repetitive or linear work, but I'm in management plus do a lot of work on the ground. I'm called to do stuff most days even if I'm not supposed to be around. More importantly, my schedule is pretty random. If I work 8 hours in a day, it's not going to be 9 to 5. It's going to be like an hour at 6 a.m., then a few hours at 9 to 12, then some 4 to 6, then someone will poke me at 10 from the offshore team. And then, on top of that, I run out of steam quick. In the above example, I'm not working 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'm just scattering my hours. Fewer days will just mean less shoot done. I can't work 10 hours. So in practice, my easiest work hours would be 6 days a week with fewer hours per days, scattered across the day, and 1 day fully off of the grid. Story 47. Assuming it's work at home and the same pay, I'd rather do 5 8-hour days. Working 10 hours a day every day is relentless, and there is absolutely no time to do anything else that day if you have chores or business to take care of. Also, there is just a point each day where you are going to stop being productive. With that said, if I had to go into an office every day, I'd rather do 4 10-hour days to avoid going into the office for an extra day. Story 48. Switched to 4 10s 3 weeks ago, and I love it. My lifestyle allows me to having 3-day weekends with a weekday, so I can schedule appointments while also working OT on Friday if I have to. 4-day weekends when Monday is a holiday. It's awesome. Story 49. I used to work from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. a day, 5 days a week, but we also had a pretty generous flex system, so I normally worked 9 or 10-hour days every few days and would take half days on Friday or Monday anyway. I'd rather just do 4 10s, but it's all dependent on the job. Story 50. I transferred to a different department a few years ago and went from working 5 8 days with tons of OT to working 4 QOH days with rare overtime and usually had the option to work it or not. It is amazing. It sucks having to wake up so early, but I've gotten used to it. Story 51. Before kid, 4 10s would have been great, but now with a kid it has to be 5 8s, or I don't see her before after school hardly at all. and she's in aftercare too long. Doesn't help I have a 45-minute one-way commute now. But even when I was WFH, I couldn't have happily done 410s. Story 52. I didn't like working 10-hour shifts because I felt by the time I got home, I was too tired to work out, make dinner, or do anything. Mind you, my job is standing on my feet all day, sometimes in the same spot for hours. I work in surgery. So by the time I got home, it was basically time to grab a quick dinner, shower, go to bed, and do it all over again. The one day off during the week wasn't as great as one would think. Story 53. I've done 3x 12-hour, 4x 10-hour, and 5x 8-hour. I think 410s were a happy medium. I found 12 hours with 30-minute lunch and a commute to be too long to accomplish anything outside of work on a workday. It left me exhausted. With 5/8, the weekend is just too short, and 2 days away from work doesn't feel like enough. Story 54. Depends on a number of other factors. 1. How long is my commute? If it's more than 10 minutes, I'd much rather work 58 or 312 than 410. 2. How much do I dislike the job? If I loathe it, I want to be there the fewest days possible. 3. Are my days off consecutive? If not, 58 all day. I cannot stand one solitary day off in the middle of my work week. Story 55. Working 4 10-hour days with 3 days off feels like having nearly half the week free. My schedule would include weekends and Wednesdays off, with work days on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. It also have the flexibility to adjust my schedule as needed with a 1-week notice. Story 56. Definitely 410s cause it usually comes with 3-day weekends. Years ago, I had a dream schedule. Worked 410s, then 1 weekend a month would be a 5-day weekend. It was like a little mini vacation once a month. Unfortunately, that ended. I knew it was too good to be true to last forever. LOL. Story 57. I used to work 7/10s on, 7 off. A 10-hour day is great it ends up being 12 hours with transit. Get home, personal maintenance, and bed. You focus on work those days. Take that first day off to rest, relax. Another for maintenance, laundry, etc. And you still have a whole day for you. Story 58. 410 is always better, considering the time it takes for most people to get ready, commute, set up, get started, etc. The amount of time savings and quality of life improvement, having an extra day off for the sake of 2 lousy hours a day, who's obviously preferential to most. Story 59. I work a combination of 7/10s and 12s every 2 weeks, which is fantastic. I work 2 days on, 2 off, 3 days on, 2 off, 3 days off, etc. I'm never more than 3 days max away from a weekend. And if I want a week off, I just take the 2 days in the middle of my 2 and 3 days off. 2 vacation days gets me an entire week off, and that really stretches throughout the year. Story 60. I've done both. I'm working 410s right now. I love it. Getting a 3-day weekend every week is unmatched. I can use my spare weekday to go to appointments, take care of stuff around my house, spend extra time with family and friends who have odd schedules, or just sleep, all without burning PTO. Story 61. I'd take 410s for sure. Having that extra full day off each week makes a huge difference. You can actually rest or get stuff done instead of just recovering for the next workday. The 10-hour shifts can drag a bit, but the 3-day weekends make it worth it. Story 62. 5 8-hour days. Most of my days I'm finished my tasks the end of the day, so there wouldn't be anything to do for the last 2 hours. If I had a job that kept me busy for all 10 hours and it wasn't too physically demanding, then I wouldn't working 10-hour days and having Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday off. Story 63. 410s is the only thing that makes sense for many firms, I feel. Not only do the 2 hours extra per day pale when compared to a whole extra day off, it's also more efficient from the company's perspective. 1 less day of keeping the lights on, bathroom clean, and, perhaps most importantly, 1 less period of setup, breakdown. I know that the first 15 minutes and last 30 minutes of my days are not truly productive, rather than being dedicated to setup, breakdown. 1 less day of that means less man-hours spent on this type of work. Story 64. I've done both, and 4x10 is way better. Yes, it's a long day. Yes, you lose evening time. But having a weekday off to run errands, get your groceries down, clean your house, etc., means weekends are free. Plus, I was off Fridays, so every 3-day weekend is a 4-day. Easy to go away for the weekend without taking vacation. God, I miss it. Story 65. 4/10s. What's an extra 2 hours a day? Then you get an extra day off. The issue when you're a tradesperson like me is, after you work 4/10s, you still are expected to work on Friday. Usually we'll only work 6 or 8 though, unless there's a push and then it's 10 as well. Story 66. I had the option and I did 4/10s for a while, but the ability to leave at 2 p.m. and have that entire day remaining is why I switched. Staying until 4:30 drove me crazy, so I'm home by 3 p.m. on Saturday and don't go back until Tuesday. It's basically a 3-day weekend still. Story 67. I used to work a 4-day work week. I love the 3 days off. In a way, they were better than working 3/12s and having 4 days off because the recovery time isn't as long. You can spend 1 day catching up on your errands and whatnot, and 2 days to do whatever you please. Story 68. Here's a weird alternative. If you do 4 8H days followed by 2 days off, you'll get the same weekly pay in 57 weeks. You end up missing 2 shifts every 7 weeks. I was doing this for a bit years ago, and 4-2 felt like a much better ratio than 5-2. Story 69. This is the world conservative business owners don't want you to know about. Story 70. I'd rather win Powerball. In my life, I have worked many types of shifts. 5/8s, swings, 3/12s, 14 on 7 off, currently 4/10s. The issue is, I work at a busy hospital, and when you're not working, you're almost always on call. Getting called in is pretty much a guarantee. That sucks. Story 71. It takes me the same amount of time to get ready in the morning and to drive home. 4/10s save me a day's worth of getting ready, with the intent of going to work, the traffic back home, and the entirety of vehicular usage and depreciation for work. I get to have a weekday to call the bank, DMV, hospital, extended warranty guy, etc. A day during working hours, when they're open. There are no lines at the grocery store before rush hour. 3-day weekend to clean the house and meal prep. I can swap a motor or transmission in 3 days. Story 72. I've done 5/8s, Cali 9s, 4/10s, and now rotating 12s. I don't like 5/8s because even though you have more personal time daily, you have to burn more PTO to have long weekends or vacations and take care of life stuff like going to the doctor or doing a special event at your kid's school, unless you start really early. If you work 9 to 5, you're driving in peak traffic, and most places are open when you're at work and closed when you're off. 9s are kind of cool. You do 4 9s and an 8 one week, then 4 9s the next, every other Friday off. 26 free days off and 26 early release days, so to speak. I like them. Solid work-life balance, but also productive. Makes you drive hard to get your stuff done so you can leave on time on your short day. I've also seen the occasional mention of 4 9s and a 4 for both weeks, and that's dog water. It's just 5/8s with extra steps and no extra days off. Same amount of commuting. I like 4/10s because you get 52 additional days off baked in without burning time. And I personally feel like a little bit longer day is more productive for me anyway, and worth it for the days off. Plus, that's 52 less commutes to work, less gas, wear and tear on your car, so you kind of get a decent little raise doing them. I think this is the best work-life balance shift. The only cool part about 12s is you effectively only work 14 days a month, so lots of time off. Super easy to do a doctor visit or go take care of errands midweek, and you can stack PTO like crazy. Otherwise, 12s will basically eliminate any ambition you have to do much of anything after work. You combine that with a bad commute, and you have zero life on your work days. But my schedule has a full week off every month. I do like that. We try to do fun stuff with the kids on my week off to kind of concentrate quality time with family. Story 73. I work 49 RN, and it's wonderful. I have more than enough time to recharge over the weekend, and my schedule is set so I don't have to randomly adjust throughout the week. The only downside IMO is I am absolutely beat after work. No fun after work adventures. It's straight home, dinner, then bed. Story 74. I do 4 9s and then 4 hours on Fridays. This works best for me because my Monday, Thursday aren't super long, and I know if I tried to take all day Friday off, I'd always end up doing some work. So instead, I'm off at 11 a.m. and have a longer weekend. I love it. Story 75. 4x10s or 3x12s is better because you have more days to moonlight and make even more money. The 3-say shift doesn't quite translate as effectively as the 4-day, but it is doable. I think the 4-day is best because you're not as exhausted. You can still have a relatively regular work week without feeling like you need a full day to recover. 3s are difficult, but many nurses and techs thrive with that. Having 3 or 4 extra days to make extra per diem money can allow you to get to your savings goals faster. You're not stuck with taking on extra work. You can do it as long as you need to in order to get yourself to your goal, and then droll the extra work. You'll still be working less than 5 days a week. So to answer the question, I would prefer 4x10s. You're splitting that 5th day between 4 days, so you're working 2 extra days a week, which if you've ever done OT, is not that big of a deal. Plus you get that extra day off, and your entire day isn't eliminated, preferably a 7-5 or 8-6 shift. Earlier the better. Story 76. I would love for 10-hour days. Yeah, those would be long days, but I would love 3 days off a week. I'd even be willing to do a 2-day weekend and a break in the middle, but that's not going to happen. I work for my city, and they aren't really into changes like that. They're trying to be progressive, but it's difficult to get progress implemented. We've always done it this way. Honestly, I see almost no one from the public on Fridays, and our work is usually completed by Thursdays. They're just paying me to babysit a window, phone, and desk. I'm older, and most jobs I've worked have been stressful from the time you get there till you leave. I feel like I deserve to work a slower-paced job, but darn, I'm over trying to find busy work. Monday is crazy busy, so is Tuesday. Then, it progressively slows. It would be a bonus to the public if they could come before 8 or after 5. But here we are. Story 77. I worked 4x10s at a call center. I was one of the few that was able to score Friday through Sunday off. It meant also that if theirs was a 3-day weekend, I got 4 days straight. It was amazing. But the 10 hours catches up to you. I felt soulless. Depends where you work. Like I go into the building at 5:30 a.m., and it was dark out during winter. And then when I ended my shift at 4 and the sun was going down. At times I had to work overtime, and I'd come out and it was dark AF. There's pros and cons. Story 78. I'm an RN doing 12s, and while at the moment I only do 2 12s because I'm part-time, inevitably I'll go back to full-time doing 3 12s. 4 days off sounds unmatched, but the first day off I'm in recovery mode, and the days I'm on are never 12-hour days. I'm on the road to work by 6:30 and rolling in the driveway between 8:30 9:30, depending on how the shift went. Not super conducive to a family, though I'll admit the scheduling flexibility has been awesome for avoiding paying for external childcare, since my husband and I can just baby swap. Anyways, 410s would be the sweet spot, imho. 3 days off, your entire day isn't lost to work on your days on, and you aren't completely wrecked when you do have time off. You couldn't force me to do 5/8s. Story 79. They're supposed to be the smart, educated ones and couldn't get it in their heads that we would still be there 40 hours a week. Story 80. First of all, whoever decided that we have to work 5 days and only get 2 days off is a POS. Secondly, I would much rather work 410s or even 3 12s. It is absolute and complete bullshit, but it is the way our society in America is. Story 81. I've done Panama and 410s. It's incredible when you feel like your week isn't just dominated by your job. You can get some shopping done, schedule all your doc visits, take college classes extra, because you have a full 8 hours during the week to do something you as a human in modern society needs to do that isn't do something for someone else. Story 82. 410s. Once I am dressed and ready and at work, it's full steam ahead for as long as it takes. I get in the zone and I could easily do 10-hour shifts as long as once my 4 days are done. I have 3 days off back to back to do absolutely fudge nothing for at least one of them. Story 83. I do 410s, usually closer to 11 though. I've done 5/8, both have perks. I feel like I can live a more normal life on a 5/8 schedule, like I can get home and still have enough day left gas in my tank to enjoy my day. Weekends go by quick though. On a 410, the schedule can be a grind and very limited me time during work week, especially with kids, but I'm able to enjoy my weekends a lot more. Story 84. 410s are nice, especially if you have split days off. However, I have found that those extra 2 hours you get when you work 5 8-hour shifts makes a huge difference in getting things done on work days. Also, when I worked 410s, I mostly slept my first day off. Story 85. I've done both in my jobs. I really like the 410s more than the 5 8-hour shifts. I work 7 to 5 p.m., Monday through Thursday, so I had Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off. That was awesome. Then I got a different job, and they only offered 5 8-hour shifts, so I had to stick with that, unfortunately. But if you can do 4 10-hour shifts a week, I think that is far better. Having that extra day off, it's so nice. Story 86. Give me those 410s. I work in fast food at a low-volume restaurant, so that probably wouldn't be something they would want to pay me for, with overtime being a factor at a low-volume store. Edit. I would probably get bored working only 4 days. I'm used to 5/8. I don't know. Shout out to the medical employees that do what they need to, just to keep the general population healthy and well. You are the real ones. Story 87. Doesn't answer your questions, but many years ago, I worked a forestry seasonal job that had 410s. One year it was Monday, Thursday, and the next year we shifted it to Tuesday, Friday. Really enjoyed the second year schedule where we had Mondays off. Very quiet in the mountains with very few tourists, able to fish hike popular lakes trails without seeing other folks. Story 88. If I had to choose between those two options, 410s, strictly because that gives for more full days off and helps you get more meaningful rest and time to do the other things one has to do. But I'm not going to do either. There are too many other ways to make money for me to go punch a clock anymore. Story 89. Honestly think I prefer 5/8. Those 2 extra hours a day makes it much easier to have a life and decent sleep schedule outside of work. 10-hour days and I have to start compromising that. Sure, you get a 3-day weekend, but I'm trying to make the most of every day, not just the weekend. Story 90. I used to work 410s, and it was great. Long weekend every weekend, so we went camping so much. Always had one weekday to do bank, post, office, etc. Errands that you can't get done on a weekend. One day to be a potato, and one day for fun stuff. Friday and Saturday night off, plus a full day to cure the hangover. 10-10. Story 91. I worked 60-70 hours per week for 18 years for a substances store chain that's no longer in business. Wasn't worth it. It cost me my marriage and my sanity. I was an alcoholic and contemplated tragic end often. I finally left that job and vowed to never do that to myself again. I've been working 40 hours per week since and would never do that again. I quit drinking 16 years ago also. Don't ever do what's eliminate you. Story 92. Hasn't 4-6 days been proven to be most productive and cost less for companies, even when pay is increased for workers to make up the lost hours? So workers get the same pay, but with less day and less hours per day, and companies save money and boost production. Story 93. Actually, my first choice is a hybrid called 9/80s. You work your 80 hours in 2 weeks with 9 working days. 9-hour days Monday to Thursday, 8-hour day every other Friday, and then every other Friday off. Having that one day every other week was just enough to consolidate doctor's appointments, long weekend getaways, etc. was great, and the extra hour was negligible. I don't have the attention span or energy to last 10 hours every day. Story 94. The whole crew got together to party on Tuesday and Friday nights because everyone had Wednesday and the weekend off. Story 95. Did 5/8 for 5 years, did 9/80 for 3 years, 80 hours across a 5-day and 4-day week, and now do 410s for the past 3 years. I like the idea of having every Friday off, but if you aren't interested in your work, it sucks. I can barely get through 7 hours a day without feeling completely over it. I end up making up hours every Friday. I even have flex time where if I work more one week, I can float a couple of those hours to another week to make up for my 40, but I can barely even do 40. LOL. Even when I did the 5/8, a 40-hour work week was still too much a lot of times, and I ended up using a couple hours PTO for almost the last year I had our schedule. Now it's way more often. To me, the hardest part is just having a life outside of it. When you do 410s, plus commuting, plus course cooking, your day is just gone. By the time you have free time at the end of the day to do what you want, it's just decompression time. Like, forget being social Monday through Thursday. Your life is on pause while you just try to keep up. A lot of my colleagues have no issue with it, but I guess I'm just not cut out for it like them. Story 96. My brain says 410s, but my feet and knees say 5/8. LOL. I wouldn't mind 10-hour shifts if I got an extra break, but sadly my workplace doesn't give that until 11 hours. Of course, if it's not super busy and there's no bosses around, I could probably sit down for a minute or two here and there. But being on my feet for 10 hours in one shift, multiple shifts in a row would get hard. Plus time starts to drag around 6 hours during an 8-hour shift. I'd probably go crazy adding an extra 2 hours onto that. Story 97. 410s, because having that extra day off is like heaven. I don't think I could go back, TBH. I work 11-hour days, 3 one week and 4 the next week, so every other week I have 4 days off, and it feels like when I was a kid and summer vacation was starting, LOL. Story 98. I used to do a 410s. It was from 6 a.m. till 4:30 p.m., and it was dreadful. At first I loved it. 3 days off, hell yeah, who wouldn't like that? Until I had to go to bed at 8 p.m. the night before work, and then the day before starting the week was awful. I always felt like it wasn't even a day off, as I spent most of it prepping for the work week with cooking and such.